Hi everyone, I'm going to show you how I made this adorable, let me see if I can find my camera, adorable little snowflake using stamped image. I embossed it and I used Tim Holtz Distress inks as a watercolor agent, and that's what I came up with. And this is also some watercolor paper. So the first thing you do is you treat your surface with your embossing buddy. This will make sure that you don't get any static on your surface, and the embossing powder won't stick to it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to use your embossing pad, and I happen to have a this is really old, this is by Ranger ink pad, and now we're going to just stamp the image, hold it down for a couple seconds straight on, and when you go take it off, you take it straight up off your paper. Then we're going to use some Lindy Stamp Gang embossing powder, and this is Midnight Pewter. I love Lindy Stamp Gang's embossing powders, especially this Midnight Pewter, because it has this gorgeous, I can't even explain it, like shine to it. You'll see once the image is when I'm done embossing it. Now, if you have any little areas that have embossing powder, like especially on your image, I don't really care too much about what's on the outside of my image because I plan on cutting it out, but there is a little bit here that needs a little more. Okay, so once your image is good and you've cleared off whatever you don't need, specifically more on the actual image, then you can go ahead and heat emboss it. And I am just going to put this back into my container so it doesn't blow everywhere. I've done that more than once. I don't want to tell you exactly how many times I've done it. And now we're just going to take the heat embossing, the heater, and there you go. Look how gorgeous that, I mean, you really can't tell, but I mean, you can see that it's a little on the shiny side. It does have a nice little, it almost looks like it's wet. All right, so we have our image, and let me just adjust my camera a little bit. Okay, we have our image, and I'm actually using one of these Prima, these are made for those doll stamps. It's one of those stamp pads. I use it for my watercoloring, and I'll show you why, because it cleans up quickly. It's the perfect size. It doesn't take up my whole tabletop. So we're going to start off first by using fire brick, and you just stamp it onto your whatever you have that's slick. You can even do, I've heard people use, oh, I can't think of the word. Anything from one of those craft mats. You can also use a piece of laminated paper because it kind of makes it dry erase, I guess you can call it. You know, so it doesn't, the colors won't stick to it. So as you can tell, I am just picking up color. I don't want to get it too wet because I want the color to slowly build. And as you can tell, I just kind of dab it, and I just dab it onto my paper. All right, so my red is going to dry. The next color I'm going to use is Mowed Lawn. And again, I just dab it on there, and I'm going to try to pick up as much pigment as I can because The mowed lawn is kind of light, and I do want my tree to be a little bit on the darker side. But I don't have a darker green for some reason. I got all kinds of greens, but not a Christmas tree green in the Distress ink. So I'll make it work, even if I have to go back and give it a couple coats of color. So it is a little oversaturated. I don't want to lift it up because I don't want my color to move around. I did oversaturate it a little bit, but hopefully the pigment will dry a little on the darker side. I'm actually going to pick up a little bit more just so that the top is a little darker and it didn't really do anything. All right, so I'm going to go back to my red and I'm just going to start giving it a little shading, and I'm not great at the shading, but it's not that difficult. And if you go over your lines, which that's why you want to try not to oversaturate and let it dry in between coats. I'm going to clean this up so that I don't mix any colors, because I've done that too. The next color I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little spun sugar, and this is going to be a tiny bit. It's not even going to be very noticeable, but I'm just going to give him a tiny bit of color on his little cheeks. And the next color we're going to do is I'm going to do his boots, and I'm going to start off with a little bit of ground espresso. Again, just trying to pick up color so it's darker, and we're going to do his boots in this color first. Now we're going to let that dry, and we're going to work on his scarf. I'm going to clean this up, and we're going to use Mermaid Lagoon. I absolutely love this tone of blue. It's so gorgeous. All right, so we're going to grab the blue, and we're just going to go in and just, again, just dab that color around. And we're going to let it dry. I'm going to jump in here and do his gloves as well, since I'm already in here with the blue. And I believe this stamp is very old. It's probably one of my first stamps that I ever bought, and it is by Peachy Keen Stamps. It's barely been used because I'm not a big stamper. I've always been afraid of stamping, but I'm getting more into it now that I'm starting to make more cards. I'm going to use a little bit of black soot, just a tiny bit, to give the bottom of his shoe some color. And then I am going to I'm going to give it a little bit of heat because I want some of these colors to dry before I move on. We're going to take a little bit of hickory smoke, and I'm going to use the hickory smoke to give him a little bit of shading. So what you want to do is you want to get a little bit of water onto your surface and kind of just spread the color into it, because you don't want it to be too dark. And then I'm just going to go and color him in, and then I'm going to dab a little bit of that color back. And that's just going to give him a little bit of color so he's not so starch white. And we're going to go around his hairline or his cap. And then we're just going to mix it in. Now I think I want to go a little bit darker on the bottom of his shoe. And then I'm going to grab a little aged mahogany just to redden his boots just a little tiny bit. Going back in with the hickory smoke again, just a little bit to shade him just a tiny bit more. And then I'm going to grab my carved pumpkin. And you guys know where I'm going with the carved pumpkin. And I am happy with his coloring. I just want to show you my pen. I believe this is a, I don't even know because it doesn't have, oh, it's Uritaki company. I prefer this one over the Prima one. I feel that the Prima pens, I have less water control, and this one doesn't oversaturate. So I've been using that. I don't know where I bought it. I've had it for a long time. So to finish up and just give it some finishing touches, I'm going to use my Wink of Stella glitter pen, and this is just a clear glitter pen, and I'm just going to go in and give his Santa hat and the white part of his sweater a little bit of glitter, and we are done. So now I'll fussy cut this, and I mean you can see that I had a little boo-boo there with the embossing powder, but it doesn't matter because it's not going to show I'm cutting that out. I will show you on my blog the finished project, and it'll be a card. I just want to remind you all that at 250 subbies, I will be giving away a $25 gift certificate to Scrapbooking with Me Boutique. So please make sure you subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.